we'll get to that later.
Yeah,
I got a lot to say about that. I got some spice on that one.
Dave Zirin in the book bunker. What are you doing in the gym these days?
Man, I can't go to the gym and wear a mask. It's worse than flying on a plane. So I go into the middle of a green field with some weights and a buddy, and we lift until we get sick.
Nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you got to keep it simple. Meghan McPeak, what are you doing in the gym these days?
I decided that I would agree to a friend of mine, Ryan. He turned 42 this year, and he's doing 42 straight days of workouts, and I foolishly decided I would join him on it. So today was day 6. So I got in my first Peloton ride at a communal Peloton. Like the bike is a communal Peloton bike.
Oh, that's another way to get around like the exorbitant Peloton prices.
So like on the bike, it had the login. I logged on and I got to do like I had access to the whole thing. So,
there we go.
Like they pay for it. Whoever owns like this bike pays for it, but they allow other people to use the login. So password sharing, which like the petty profiteers of the digital age hate, but at the same time, like this is what we've always done forever. These people probably don't like libraries. You mean you're gonna buy one book and just let anyone borrow? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. It's a library. As for me, go ahead, Dave.
It sounds a little like a pelican.
Dad
also,
jokes.
before we get started, may I say, by the time this comes out, happy birthday, Mom.
Oh, happy birthday, Mom McPeak. Get it.
Wednesday's her birthday, and this will be out Tuesday night, Wednesday.
Perfect. You can just keep watching it overnight. That can be her birthday present to us. Yeah, my workouts are very simple these days. When I was driving across the border in Detroit, and the customs guy gave me the old, "Hey, do you mind if I look in your trunk?" Which there's only one thing they're looking for when they look in your trunk, and it ain't the stuff you bought at the mall. Right. So he's looking in the trunk and he's unzipping like my suitcase. He's looking all through there. But the biggest, heaviest thing, because I was moving weight, a pair of kettlebells, and he comes back to the front of the car. He says, "Hey, you have kettlebells in your trunk." I said, "Yes, I do, because I don't go in gyms anymore." And then that, like, his whole demeanor changed. He's like, "Okay, on your way." So workout wise, that's what I'm doing these days. Had a bit of a deload week, got into the kettlebells. I'm going to try to hit the weights hard this week and see what happens. Anyway, it's another week. Bring it in with Morgan Campbell. Guys and girls, women, men, if you're here every week, you know what to do. Hit like, hit subscribe to CBC Sports, leave a comment if you like it. If you don't like it, hit dislike, or leave a nasty comment. All engagements matter. Why is that, Meghan?
Because we want to feed the algorithm.
Feed the algorithm. Feed it like I fed myself last week. 1 week in Chicago, I'm up 5 pounds. Feed it like I fed myself. That's a true story, by the way. And again, this is the best panel. Did I do all the housekeeping? Yeah. Like, subscribe, comment, dislike, nasty comment, feed the algorithm. I don't do this by myself. I do this with the best panel in the business. Joining us from Washington, D.C., in the top left corner of my screen, I see him at the book bunker. Probably half of those books are actually authored by Dave Zirin. This is how prolific an author he is. Latest book, The Kaepernick Effect. Dave Zirin, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. Great to be here. Let's chop it up.
Yes, let's do it. And also joining us from Washington, D.C., whose mom is about to celebrate a birthday, 21 this year, Mrs. McPeak?
Yes, 21. She can finally have her first drink.
Finally have her first drink anywhere on the continent. The play-by-play voice of the Washington Mystics, the play-by-play voice of the Capital City Go-Go. Meghan McPeak, how we doing?
I can't complain at all. We're all breathing, so that's always good.
Exactly. So listen, as usual, this is my favorite part of the week, Monday morning. And there's a lot to cover as usual, but yeah, so we are going to talk about the man who got famous for saying F Brooklyn. If you don't know who that is, you're going to remember in a few minutes. We're going to talk about everybody's favorite baseball manager on everybody's least favorite team and how they're going to the World Series. And we are going to start, like we do a lot of times with the NFL, and these aren't spicy takes. This is a real deal. So it's not a spicy take for me to say that the practice of race norming, when retired NFL players who thought they were suffering from brain damage would go through these cognitive tests and apply for money under this $1 billion settlement, what would happen is the NFL's lawyers would want to know if this person was white or black. Because if you were white, you would score the test one way. If you were black, you would score it another way under this theory called race norming, which it, as applied here, says that black people do not do as well on these scores as white people do. So if a bunch of black retired players score poorly on these cognitive tests, it's not because they're brain damaged because of years in the NFL. It's just because they're black and they came off the assembly line that way. Therefore, do not pay them out under this settlement. So this has been in the news for at least a year. Player after player after player saying, look, I've been denied. Players, widows, and orphan children saying, hey, look, our family's been denied because the NFL, either the doctor applied this race norm to my test scores, or the doctor didn't, and then had the claim rejected by a lawyer or someone else at the NFL who said, nope, you scored this like you would score a white guy, score it like you score black guys. Anyway, last week, the lawyers for some of the players and the league announced that they would scrap race as a factor in terms of determining somebody's degree of cognitive impairment under the terms of the settlement. Dave Zirin, tough to know which way to go with this. First, we'll go with this. How much should we celebrate that what the NFL and its lawyers have done is simply decided to step back from easily one of the most blatantly racist acts and policies that you are likely to see in 2021? Like, how much credit do these people really deserve?
Oh, no credit. This is like Wall Street saying they're going to clean up the financial crisis. The problem that we have here is that we're misidentifying who the heroes are. Mm-hmm. I mean, this starts with Najah Davenport and Kevin Henry, two former NFL players, and the whistleblowers amongst the clinicians who were hired by the National Football League through their mediation partnership with the retired players, who also deserve egg on their face for agreeing to this in the first place, who came forward and said, you know what? This is racist. We are denying people the benefits that they deserve because of the color of their skin and because of a blatantly racist idea that goes back in this country, we have to say, since the first days of the transatlantic slave trade. People are like, what's the origins of race norming? The origins of race norming are about justifications for the enslavement of African people, to say that they were better suited biologically for the act of Southern slavery, of picking cotton and all the rest of it, as opposed to white people or indigenous people. I mean, that's actually the origins of race norming, and it's existed in medicine for hundreds of years. And the idea that it's finally being confronted in this particular case only speaks not only to the racism that's endemic to the National Football League, but the racism that's endemic to our system of medicine in the United States. It still needs to be uprooted in a lot of different areas. If the NFL can be the first shot across the bow to end race norming, great. That's wonderful. But let's not pretend that the NFL are somehow crusaders in this process.
No, because what we've seen just in the last few weeks with the NFL, right, is the John Gruden emails and more John Gruden emails, and then these cryptic statements from John Gruden that more is coming. Because again, like, if you're paying attention, you know that John Gruden is hardly the only racist, misogynist, homophobe roaming the upper levels of the NFL. So Meghan McPeak, where do you rank this development in this NFL season of social justice scandals?
When you say rank it, do you mean in the sense of positive or negative?
Well, that's
because I would rank it a 0 on both, because it should have never been happening in the first place. Just like John Gruden should have never been emailing or even saying the words he said about lips looking like tires, or a gay player playing in the NFL, or female coaches or referees within the NFL. Like, that should have never happened. So if that should have never happened, and people have made it blatant that should have never happened, this should have never happened. Because at the end of the day, these athletes are playing, whether they are Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Latin, I don't care what your ethnicity and background is. At the end of the day, these athletes are playing one of the most violent sports, because you could arguably say hockey is a violent sport, because basically it's a fight with a hockey game that breaks out. Rugby is a violent sport as well too. So it is one of the most violent sports that you voluntarily play yes, you get paid. It is a job. I understand that, but you're voluntarily agreeing to go head to head and smack other grown men as hard as you can to win a game. You have to take care of these people after the fact. So if they're saying that they have issues medically, you need to take care of them. Their race should not matter. Their gender should not matter. Their ethnicity and background and biological makeup should not matter. You should want to help these men get the medical attention and the medical help and what they are deserved and what they are earned for the work that they put in on the field and off the field as employees, as athletes, because they helped build the brand of the NFL, and they did it on their own backs and on the backs of this brotherhood as fellow NFL players. So why would you not want to take care of them? Oh, guess what? Because it costs you money. Duh. Obviously, everything comes back to money. So let's take care of the white athletes because cognitively, you're going to say that they're smarter so they can do better on the test.
And now somebody from like the group of people we make fun of all the time, like the cult of the general manager types who only look at the numbers and don't understand context and think that the numbers will always tell the story as opposed to telling part of the story out of context. Those guys might maybe argue that this is smart business, right? And that you any move that shrinks the class of people eligible for these payouts saves the NFL money. And then it's not about race, it's just about money. It's smart business. It might seem callous, but it's smart business. But amongst the older retirees, according to the New York Times story, half of them are Black and half of them are white. And so if you're the NFL and you're just trying to save money by trying to exclude half of the people from these payouts, it's not a coincidence that you hit on a way to exclude the Black half from the payouts and not the white half. If it's only about the money, 50-50, you flip a coin one way or the other, you can exclude half the people and save money, but you just happen to pick the Black ones. But at the same time, the NFL, as we've learned, you can look at the rosters, like in successive generations, it becomes more and more of an African-American league. So we start talking about the more recent retirees, old enough to be part of this settlement, but also young enough to not have filed the claim yet because maybe they're not feeling the cognitive decline yet. Now you're talking about a group of people that's 70% Black. But as Dave said, like racism is so baked into this process. And this is just what we've seen with Gruden and Allen and the Washington football team. And now with this are just the ways that it's kind of bubbling to the surface for people to see in ways that they can't deny. Last word on this to you, Dave Zirin.
I was just going to say that if the league was somehow more in the practice of living the racial equity that they so often like to mouth and sloganeer, this would be far less of a story. The only reason this story has teeth is because there are only 3 Black American coaches right now in the NFL, because there are even fewer top executives than that, because there are no Black franchise owners. I mean, if this was not the case, then this story would be looked at as a horrific error from a previous generation or a number cruncher who did wrong unbeknownst to the league, and they could quickly throw somebody under the bus and move on. But we shouldn't let them move on from this story for the precise reason that it is evocative of a much larger problem in the NFL.
Perfect. Meghan McPeak, you a big baseball fan?
Yeah.
Dave Zirin, what about
basketball.
You? Yeah, oh yeah, because now's the time. Perfect. Parachute in with like the strong opinions. It don't matter whether or not they're well informed. It doesn't matter because this is the one time of year everyone's watching. And what we're going to see is the Houston Astros, managed by Dusty Baker, against the Atlanta Braves. Who's the manager in Atlanta these days, Dave? Do you remember?
The manager in Atlanta. What's his name? We don't have this era of the big personality man.
No, that is true because the executives are famous now and the managers are like
Brian Snitker.
Snitker, yes.
I mean,
yes.
Brian, we're not exactly talking Casey Stengel here.
No, so this is a matchup now. Brian Snitker versus Dusty Baker. And the importance of Dusty Baker is twofold. One, he's too young to be a pioneering African-American manager, except that he sort of is, because there was Frank Robinson and a long gap, Cito Gaston, and then maybe a handful of other guys. And then Dusty Baker, becomes a full-time manager, I think, in the 1990s. But he is also the manager who has more wins than any other manager without having won a World Series. So now he's into his early 70s. He's about 72 now. This is a chance. And he is also, and here's where we get into this discussion, the guy who the Astros hired to cleanse their image after the sign stealing scandal. So now we have the Astros, whom everyone is supposed to hate. And then we have Dusty Baker, who right-minded people love, but again, the same cult of the manager types, the same we love numbers but don't understand context types, they all hate Dusty Baker because he's old school. But the rest of us, all of those of us who think right, we love Dusty Baker. Meghan McPeak, which side is going to win out for you? Dislike for the sign-stealing Astros or the love for Dusty Baker in this World Series?
Always the love for Dusty Baker. Always. Why not? You always, I mean, you know me. You always got to go with the optimism. You got to go with the love.
He was the guy, let's remember, who had Darren Baker, the little 3-year-old bat boy that almost got ran over in, I think, the 2002 World Series. Dave Zirin, like, how significant is it? And what does it say about Dusty Baker and his reputation, his esteem, that he is the person that Houston hired to help clean up the sign-stealing scandal mess?
Well, it says a great deal. I mean, think about Dusty Baker's legacy for a second. The Reds, the Giants, the Nationals, the Cubs, and now the Astros. That's unbelievable. I mean, baseball is the sport, I would argue, where the manager, particularly in 2021, plays the least role of all the major sports in the ability to sort of single-handedly turn a franchise around. Mm-hmm. And here's Dusty Baker having that rarest of qualities that you really, I would argue, only see once in a generation on a team, where a manager can come in, right a ship, and turn a team proper. And he's done it 5 times. I mean, what an incredible legacy. He's also the person who, just happened to be walking Jackie Robinson to the microphone when Jackie Robinson gave his last speech at Dodger Stadium, speaking about the lack of black managers in Major League Baseball, using that opportunity to call out the league in one of his last public appearances. So you're talking about somebody also who is closest friends with Henry Aaron, who just passed away. In other words, he stands in the tradition of the best angels in the history of Major League Baseball. So, of course, the Houston Astros, a team that sits at the table with Beelzebub and Satan and plays cards and cheats, is the team that's going to hire Dusty Baker. It was one of the most brilliant hires in a generation, precisely because this was a team that needed to be dipped into the waters of Lourdes and cleansed of their sins. And only Dusty Baker has the kind of political, emotional, and historical capital to have been able to pull that off, unless they were going to somehow revive Frank Robinson himself to manage this team. So,
go ahead.
Like, people say to me, who are you possibly rooting for, the Houston Astros or the tomahawk chopping, Travis Tritt loving Atlanta Braves? And the answer is, who am I rooting for? I'm rooting for Dusty Baker, and that's all I got to say.
2 things that stand out about Dusty Baker in this context. One is that when people get caught cheating, you see this in baseball, track and field all the time, when the person who is known to have used steroids, maybe tested positive during their career, they get outed some other way, and they put up all these stats that we now want to put an asterisk next to. And then years later, they say, I regret ever taking steroids. I think I could have done it all with my natural ability, and I robbed myself of the chance to see that. And you're like, listen, man, you don't regret a damn thing, because steroids work. That's why people use steroids. And you hit 68 home runs with steroids, you weren't going to hit 68 without steroids. You're going to hit 48, 50, something like that. So now here we have the Astros, who stole a bunch of signs and wound up winning the World Series. And now they get that strategic weapon taken from them. And now we get to see, well, what can they do without stealing signs? Take out sign stealing, add Dusty Baker, and look at this, they're back in the World Series. And the other thing about Dusty Baker, and again, so much of this has to do with race, in the sense that, and this is nothing against like Alex Bregman, but Alex Bregman got so much credit for being bilingual, right? He's an American white guy, but he speaks very good Spanish, which on that team is really useful because they have Gurriel, Alvarez, and players that come from Cuba speak significantly next English, like basically none, when they come to North America to play, because they don't come up through academies. They don't learn even baseball English. They are playing for Cuba, and then they get out and then they come speaking no English. So a guy like Bregman is very useful. But Bregman gets all kinds of credit, deservedly so. And the two groups of people that don't get credit for being bilingual are the Latino players. A lot of these guys like come over to North America speaking next to no English and have to like sink or swim and learn. And two, like Dusty Baker is fully bilingual, and he doesn't speak like Tarzan Frankenstein Spanish. Like, he is fluent, and also not just fluent in like the Spanish you learn in school, but in the Caribbean Spanish that you hear in a major league locker room. And like, he does not get a ton of credit for that, but like that in terms of capital gets you so far in the locker room, because here's a guy who grew up in California, but spent a lot of time, did his time over the winter in Venezuela as a player. And that's where he learned Spanish and learned from his, and the thing is too, he a lot of players are just happy to let the Latino corner of the locker room be the Latino corner of the locker room and never make any overtures over there. But Dusty Baker is not that guy. And this has served him very well as a manager. So if you ask, like, why is he able to find success in these different franchises? That's a huge part of it, because he's able to unite like these really fractured, segregated locker rooms. Like, that is a skill. There's some drama going on with Rogers. So Edward Rogers, who was the son of Ted Rogers, who founded the company, which again, Canadians know, he was ousted as the chair of the board. He still has an executive position, but he's no longer the board chair. Okay, and this is just in the last week or so. Look, this is some big drama. So he responded by using his capacity as whatever other executive he is, plus as part of the family that controls most of the voting shares. He said, I'm just going to fire the whole board and bring in a new board, which he has not been able to do, but this is what he wants to do. And you guys are going to pick up on a theme. So this is the drama that's going on. And like, real quick, one of the things he wanted to do is he wanted to fire another executive named Joe Natale. And Joe Natale did not know that Edward Rogers wanted to fire him. And Joe Natale, it gets a call one day. It basically, Edward Rogers butt dials Joe Natale. So Joe Natale picks up the phone thinking it's Edward Rogers wanting to talk to him. It's Edward Rogers talking to somebody else about firing Joe Natale. Right. So this is what we're dealing with. So that's the context. So in a context like this now, everybody who has like an Edward Rogers did me wrong story, they're all coming out with them. Okay. So the one that hits the internet Monday morning, and you guys are asking me, what does this have to do with sports? It has a lot to do with sports. This company owns the Blue Jays. They own 37.5% of the Maple Leafs and of the Raptors, of whom Masai Ujiri was the president. And he was negotiating for a new contract this past summer. Now here's the lead from the story from Christine Dobby and Doug Smith Monday morning. Former Rogers chair Edward Rogers actively fought plans to keep Masai Ujiri as head of the Toronto Raptors this summer, saying he was not worth the amount offered, and then tried to extract an extraordinary benefit for his own company. The Star has learned. Let's stop there. Meghan McPeak, you're our basketball expert. Real quick, like, just run down what Masai Ujiri has done for this team on and off the court, and like what you lose if you let someone that good, just on and off the court, stick to sports, what you lose if you let someone like that walk out the door.
I think the most obvious one, the elephant in the room, if you will, is the 2019 championship run. But as well, too, like, you think of all his philanthropy that he does off the court through Giants of Africa. I know that's not specifically in Canada, but a lot of that ties into him utilizing and working with people within MLSE and the Raptors organization are a lot of the people that help him on the Giants of Africa trips that he takes. You'll see a lot of the coaches go with him on these camp trips when they go to different countries within Africa and do the camps. So kind of ties in with the basketball in that sense, with utilizing the people within the organization with his philanthropy work and everything that's there. So 2019 championship, the philanthropy work, how to get to the championship. Obviously, the biggest trade in Raptors history on the course to the championship that cut a lot of people deep. The Kawhi and DeMar DeRozan trade. We also know there were other factors that went into that trade, but that was the two biggest names. So you have the 2019 championship and you have Kawhi Leonard You also have Danny Green with what he brought to the team in that championship run with the defense, being able to knock down huge shots and huge timely shots. Serge Ibaka and what he was able to bring to the team. Allowing Fred VanVleet to grow into Fred VanVleet. Kyle Lowry being Kyle Lowry, helping him turn into the Kyle Lowry that we know, who a lot of people have crowned the GROAT, if you will, for those that don't know, greatest rapper of all time. As well, too, Pascal Siakam, drafting him. The way he drafts guys that when you're looking at possibly other teams' draft boards, they might not be on the draft board in the same position that Masai and Bobby Webster will have, or at all. So that's just, if you will, the highlight tape for Masai Ujiri and what he does. And all of that encompasses the heels to get to a 2019 championship and upset the Golden State Warriors.
The other thing Masai Ujiri did is he said F Brooklyn before that playoff game, in which, okay, it's only 2 words, but understand that, like, in terms of like a statement of civic pride, right? And an investment in the franchise. And also the idea that you're not scared to make enemies and like you will pay a fine. Like, so
you would think Masai is Canadian.
Yes.
The way he wrote,
which means he's part of the fabric of the franchise.
You would think he's Canadian. Yeah.
All right. So let me before I throw to you, Dave, let me run down another scenario involving Edward Rogers, because again, the Rogers Communications, Rogers Media owns the Blue Jays. Their longtime president, Paul Beeston, this is probably 2014 or 15, you guys can fact check me on this, but Edward Rogers decided he wanted to get rid of Paul Beeston. Didn't tell Paul Beeston this. He decided he wanted to hire Ken Williams away from the Chicago White Sox. So Ed Rogers calls Jerry Reinsdorf over at the White Sox and says, hey, I want to fire Beeston and hire your guy, Ken Williams. To which Reinsdorf says, cool, man. Let me call you back. Click. And then he picks up the phone and calls his really good friend, Paul Beeston, and says, hey, man, I just got a call from your boss. He's trying to fire you. And so naturally, this whole thing falls apart. But this is the level of like ownership, strategy, and acumen we're dealing with. And the second highlight, and here I'm about to throw to you, Dave, from this story, because it's about getting back to the story itself, it's about Ed Rogers not thinking Masai Ujiri is worth $15 million a year, even though franchise valuation increased by whatever percent it did, but like much faster than the rest of the league. Even though, as Meghan pointed out, there's like also hardware. There are championship banners up in there, but Edward Rogers decides this guy's not worth the money. Well, why not? Looks like there's some intangibles. Dave, here's from the story. Let me find it. Give me one. Oh, here we go. Rogers said the Raptors president, Ujiri, was arrogant, according to sources, arriving with bodyguards, and that he failed to share his vision for the team. Dave Zirin, I do it or you do it? The word arrogant.
Yeah. We know what that means. And I think we've reached a point in our popular culture where, you know, like 20 years ago, if someone had said, oh, he's arrogant, and then another white person said, oh, no, they're articulate. Then 20 years ago, you would say, wait a minute, take a step back. Those words are very racially loaded, and you should think before you speak. 20 years now, it's 2021. If you don't know by now what you're actually saying, when you say words like arrogant or, oh, he's very articulate, you know, these are things that are now such common parlance in the culture. Ed Rogers knows exactly what he's doing and knows exactly what he's saying. From Masai's position, he didn't show up with a bunch of bodyguards, it's worth saying. He showed up with a damn driver and somebody doing like a
videographer,
non-profit documentary.
What's the bodyguard doing with a video camera?
It was ridiculous.
Strangest bodyguard I've ever seen.
You had a non-profit videographer and you had a driver. And also, Masai Ujiri was apparently gobsmacked at the thought that he didn't share a vision for the team, which makes me find Ed Rogers' whole perspective on this to be very much in doubt. The only thing I would say is, Chris Hayes wrote a great book called Twilight of the Elites, and its thesis was that with each successive generation, the people who we've always looked to as the minders of society, the wealthy, the politicians, as the generations go on, their children become lesser and lesser versions of the original. And in Ed Rogers, I think you see this. When you have people born on third base and think they hit a triple, they tend to be arrogant themselves and say and do things that are not in the best interest of the franchise. I wish Carlos Rogers was in charge of the Toronto Raptors, not Ed Rogers. I wish Mr. Rogers was in charge. Because kinds of decisions being made, if you're willing to give Masai Ujiri the stiff arm after all we've seen over the last couple of years, you really don't belong in any position of authority of an NBA franchise.
Well, one of the things we know before Edward Rogers cleaned up his Twitter feed, one of the things we knew about him was that he is an admirer of Donald Trump. He has put in his time at Mar-a-Lago. He used to, before he cleaned up his Twitter feed, he would tweet photos of himself with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, right? And all of these machinations seem very Trumpian. You don't really have a plan. Somebody rubs you the wrong way or questions your authority. Asks you, what's your, fire him, fire her, hire a bunch of people who are going to be loyal to me, whether or not they know how to do the job. And the other thing we know about Masai Ujiri is that he is the man that brought Barack Obama into Scotiabank Arena or Air Canada Center. I can't remember which name it had at the time during the 2019 NBA finals. And so I don't know if I'm not going to say that there's a direct connection, but what we do know is that if you have one guy in power who is a good friend of Barack Obama's and another guy in power who admires Donald Trump and appears to be trying to run his organization the way Donald Trump ran the United States, the possibility of conflict is ripe and it's always there. But Masai Ujiri is still on his job. Edward Rogers is still trying to hang on to his first job. So there we go. It is time for my favorite part of the week. In and out. Meghan tells me she has some spicy takes. I believe her. Dave always has spicy takes. He doesn't have to tell me. He just shows me. Here we go. This past week, I don't know if you guys know, well, some of you guys know this, Hafthor Bjornsson from Game of Thrones. And before that, he was a world champion strongman, but he's gotten into boxing like a lot of people. So he's been training with boxers. Cool. So he winds up training with lightweight champion Teofimo Lopez, who has a fight coming up at the end of November. And so after this workout, they decide they're just going to punch each other as hard as they can in the stomach. So Teofimo hits Hafthor. Hafthor hits Teofimo. They both stand there, try to act like it didn't hurt. Meghan McPeak, are you in or out on this type of post-practice horseplay?
Neither.
Listen, man, we pay you the big bucks to be in or out.
I feel like I'm like neither, but also both, because I know for a fact when my brother and I were younger, we did shot for shot.
Do either of you hit as hard as Teofimo Lopez?
No, but my brother's 4 years older than me. He's got probably 4 or 5 inches on me, and we did shot for shot. It's probably who made me as tough as I am. So I guess I have to say I'm in and out. I'm in and out on this. But I would not take a body shot from a professional fighter.
No, that's not advisable. Dave Zirin, you in or out?
I'm all for going shot for shot, but there better be some wild turkey involved.
Yeah, I'm out because okay, you get hit enough as it is as a boxer, but and I understand Hafthor is literally 3 times Teofimo's size, but isn't as well schooled as a boxer, so probably doesn't understand. He hits with raw strength, but not with the timing and leverage of a pro boxer. But at the same time, Teofimo, you have a fight coming up. And if that guy, if he hits you in the wrong spot, anyone hits you in the wrong spot, your payday's
there goes your spleen.
Yes, they're not paying you to get punched by Hafthor. If you got to get punched clean, get paid. Jeez, guys, let's do this. All right, topic 2. University of Illinois beat Penn State 20-18 over the weekend. This game included 9 overtimes. Now, they don't play full quarters, right? You get the ball at the 25, you go in, you try to go in. If it's still tied, you do it again. If it's still tied, you do the 2-point conversion try, and on and on and on and on and on. 9 overtimes. until Illinois finally beats Penn State 20-18. Meghan McPeak, you in or out on any football game taking that long?
Ooh, thinking about that is making me need to. I'm parched.
Listen, I fell asleep twice.
I'm out. Like, I'm out. Like, just it shouldn't end in a tie, but also it shouldn't take 9 overtimes. Like, at that point, it should just be a shootout between quarterbacks.
Yeah, throw the ball
like
through
shootout
the,
and shoot like a shootout in soccer.
You tie the tire.
You do it with quarterbacks.
Yeah, and
so like you just have you pick your 4, maybe your 3. Can't be 4 because of my math. You got to have your 3 or your 5 guys you want to throw to. Whoever has the most completions, that team wins. Like at this point, whatever. And you do it with defense. So that way it's not.
But then that's going to take longer. Oh my goodness. Dave's hiring.
No, like it's just like one-on-one coverage. One-on-one coverage.
Oh, like the one-on-one
have a
drill.
guy coming at you in a quarter, like you simulate it, something like because it shouldn't take that long. And then it ends in such a low-scoring game. Like, come on.
This is what I'm saying. Dave Zirin, you in or out on any football game taking that long?
Particularly any college football game. Look, why don't we just have them run around in a circle around the stadium, and whoever doesn't pass out, that team wins the game. I mean, if your starting point is that college football already is an immoral proposition, and then you're in the position of trying to basically make these guys play as much as possible. I can't be for that. This is ridiculous. You know, in my day, we had ties.
Right.
It's the way it was, and we liked it. And the difference was the college athlete got to show out for the NFL without having to die. Right. So I'm going to go without on this.
Yeah, I'm out on it too. I wouldn't have minded, and if I was Penn State, I wouldn't have minded a tie because now their alternative is that they've lost to unranked Illinois, and Penn State used to be ranked, and now they're not. I'll tell you what I'm in on though. The young man at the University of Illinois who ran 33 times for 220 yards. That's Chase Brown from London, Ontario. He and his twin brother, Sydney, play at Illinois, and these two are legitimate, like NFL. Maybe. Last one. NBA released its list of 75 players. Sorry, top 75 players. Or was it 76 because there was a tie?
They called it 75, but there was 76 names because there was a tie.
Oh, my goodness. So then somebody at the end, just kick somebody off. What is this, man? Anyway. Wait, was the tie for 76th place?
They didn't rank them in order.
Well, this is the problem. They should have just ranked them. These are cowards at the NBA.
No, that would have been a disaster. It would have been a bigger disaster.
Scared of a little debate. Okay, so number 77 apparently is Klay Thompson because he's not on the list. Meghan McPeak, you in or out on Klay Thompson not making the top 75 or 76?
Okay, so I am out on him not making the list. And I apologize because I know we're supposed to go quick on this, but I need to fire off some facts on this, okay? So here's my
magic of editing. Don't worry about that.
I'm very much, and I think Dave would agree with me on this. I'm very much the type of person that if you're going to put someone on the list that you feel is snubbed, you got to take someone off. I got 2 names for you that we can take off.
Yep.
Bill Walton and Damian Lillard.
Ooh.
Damian Lillard, hell of a player. Don't get me wrong. He is a hell of a player. However, what have you done so far to be the top 75 in NBA history at this current moment? Haven't won a title. You haven't gotten out of the Western Conference Finals. You haven't gotten out of the Western Conference. Don't get me wrong. You have some huge dagger shots, timely shots, but what have you done? Okay, so that would be the first person I would take off the list. Bill Walton would be my second one. You look at the time he played. He played 10 seasons, under 500 games due to injury. He has only 6,100 points. Klay Thompson has played 8 seasons. He has missed the last, season and a half due to injury. He has under 12,000 points and 3 championship titles. And in my opinion, this is where it gets spicy, ladies and gentlemen. In 2016, on that championship finals run, they did not win the title because LeBron and the Cavs won. But on that run, if Klay Thompson does not go off against Oklahoma City Thunder, is Kevin Durant in a Warriors uniform? In my opinion, probably not.
Interesting. That is a spicy take. Adios, Walton. See you in the boxing gym or the rap studio. Lillard, put Klay on that team. Dave Zirin, you in or out on the Klay Thompson snub?
Look, I'm old enough to remember NBA 50. So
am I.
And they did that in such a fun way. They released a book. They did all these interviews. They spoke about the history of the league. We got in some fun debates about Dominique versus James Worthy. Maybe this reflects changes in the culture in the last 25 years, but I think the NBA could not have done this in a way that was less fun, less interesting. I mean, it's been a drag. And one of the reasons why it's been a drag is because I feel like the list made some big mistakes. And so I agree with Meghan about that. And the mistake that's the most disheartening is just a profound disrespect for the 1980s. Mm-hmm. So who's the greatest player of the 1980s? It's Michael Jordan, of course. It's Magic Johnson. It's Larry Bird. But if you ask the players who was the most dangerous player in that time period other than Jordan, people take a deep breath and they say Bernard King. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when you ask the question, gee, who's the leading scorer for all the 1980s? Surely it must be MJ. It's not MJ. It's Alex English. Alex English, who led the Nuggets deep into the playoffs year after year after year with an incredible skill set. So to me, Alex English not being on that list is an abomination, and not just because of his brilliant performance in Amazing Grace and Chuck, the greatest performance by a basketball player in the history of cinema. Put that out there. Any basketball player. All right. Go ahead. Don't say Ray Allen, he got game. Don't say Dr. J. Fish that saved Pittsburgh. I don't want to hear any of that stuff. Not even Kareem and Airplane. I don't want to hear any of it. Alex English, Amazing Grace and Chuck, he deserved to be on that list. Bernard King, the person who made Larry Bird scared in 1984, deserved to be on that list. And here's who didn't deserve to be on that list. First and foremost, I can't agree with Meghan more about Bill Walton. I mean, Bill Walton, in my opinion, the second greatest college player to ever live, one of the great announcers. He basically had 200 good NBA games. Like, if you drill it down, 200 games. I mean, I'm sorry his career was ravaged by injuries. I'm sorry he was never the player he should have been. But it's that he does not belong on this list. 200 good games. Why not Sam Bowie? You know, like let's take a second look at Greg Oden. I mean, it's ridiculous. And I'm sorry all that falls on Portland. That's very sad.
I don't know the NBA in the level of detail you guys do, but I do know this. When they did the top 25 guys from the first 25 years, all those guys are on this list. The top 50 guys, all those guys are on this list. So you're telling me that any new person that comes along winds up coming along after the top 50, and that these top 50, first 50 guys who, and this list is full of a lot of like old timers, like respect for my elders and the pioneers and everything. I get it. But at the same time, you have to recognize how people are better. Like, this reminds me of the boxing people that like look at today's boxing and they're like, there's no way Deontay Wilder can be Bob Fitzsimmons. I'm like, are you kidding me? Bob Fitzsimmons was a 170-pound heavyweight champion. You think he's going to beat Deontay Wilder? Like, if I'm ranking my top heavyweights, sorry, Bob Fitzsimmons, you got to go behind Deontay Wilder. So like, yeah, all the guys that played back in the day when you couldn't nobody dribbled with their left hand. Sorry, guys. Somebody in the intervening 50 years who has come along uses two hands, and that person's better than you are. Go ahead.
Just the one person we didn't name, which is the one that most of the NBA media is most in a lather about, is Dwight Howard. And so I might as well just say officially, I'm cool with Dwight Howard not being on this list.
If he's not on it, then Anthony Davis got to come off it.
Well, yeah, the Anthony Davis is silly. No, you're right. You're right. And you know, it's a wild thing is if you look at Nikola Jokic, like just what he's accomplished already in terms of all NBA. Jokic and Derrick Rose are the only MVPs not on the list. I'm just saying that there was a lot of massaging that I think needed to be done to this list.
We could literally talk like all afternoon about it's funny because people make lists so that gullible fools can argue about it. And let's argue. Anyway.
Here we are.
Let's stop. Okay. We've had a good time. My favorite part of the week. We'll be back. We should be back next week. Meghan McPeak, between now and then, tell the people where to find you.
On the Twitterverse at Meghan McPeak, spelt with an H because it is the right way to do it.
All right. And David Zirin, when you're not arguing about NBA all-timers with me and Meghan, where can the people find you?
At Alex English Stan on Twitter for all the best in your silky post moves that never make the ESPN top 10.
Perfect. And as for me, I'm at Morgan P. Campbell on Twitter, at Morgan P. Campbell on Instagram. I'm not on the other platforms, so those are the two places you can find me. If you like what you heard and you stuck with us this far, and I thought this was going to be a short episode, it still might wind up being a short episode thanks to the magic of editing, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, if you stuck with us this far, remember to hit subscribe to CBC Sports on YouTube, so you can get notifications when new content like new episodes of Bring It In hit the internet. Hit like, leave a comment, send us your in or out suggestions, hit us up on social media using the Bring It In hashtag. If you don't like what you've heard, hit dislike, leave a nasty comment. It hurts me deeply, as I mentioned last week, so please do it. And besides all that, what is the byproduct, Meghan McPeak?
We feed the algorithm.
Feed the algorithm like Paul Westhead's Denver Nuggets used to feed Alex English, right? So you go fill it up. And so that's it. Until next week, I've been your host, Morgan Campbell. This is Bring It In, and we will see you 1 week from today.